Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown, and I'm your moderator and co-host for the evening. So very, very happy to have you here with us on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Please do me a favor. Give us one great big share on all social media platforms, and we will be grateful to you. I see people are already coming in on the comment section from every place. And so what I like you to do is tell us where you're watching from. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you're coming from. Let's get started. We got a great show for you on tonight. I can tell you now that St. Louis is here, and I'm so very happy to have you here with us on tonight. And let's see who else is here. Of course, Bishop-elect Sonia Williams is in the house, Atlanta, Georgia. Let me pause right here and give a big shout out to TFAM, Southern Region, South Region of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, to Centers for Spiritual Living of Atlanta, as well as to RIM and all of those who made donations for Water for Jackson, Mississippi. We are so glad and so happy about your participation with Water for Jackson. You did good. You did better than good. They exceeded their expectations. They have 2 truckloads of water, sanitizer, wipes going down to Jackson, Mississippi. 2 truckloads. Thank you for the donations that you've made to the Southern Region of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, along with Centers for Spiritual Living in Atlanta, Pastor David Alexander, as well as RIM, which is Bishop-elect Sonia Williams Church. And so they had a great effort to get 2 tractor trailers full of water going to Jackson. And so we are grateful for your great work. Great work, Bishop-elect Sonia Williams, and all of those, Reverend David Alexander, all of those that helped you to move that forward. So big shout out to Atlanta and to REM and to Centers for Spiritual Living. Also, Miko Mo, thank you for being here. McDonough, Georgia, we're so glad you're here tonight. We say hello to Colleen, Texas. Thank you for being here. North Carolina is here. Houston, Texas is here. New Jersey is here. Rancho Cucamonga is here. California. We have Raleigh, North Carolina here. We have Chicago in the house. And let me just say something about my friend in Chicago, Natasha Robinson. Legalese Please was just appointed by the governor to, let me find it, because you always got to talk right when you talk about people and what they're doing. But I just thought it was completely awesome that she just received this appointment by the governor. She is on the Commission for Illinois Torture Inquiry and Relief. Illinois Torture Inquiry and Relief. She is appointed as one of the commissioners. We're shouting out Natasha Robinson from Legalese Please. Congratulations on such great work and being appointed as a new commissioner by the governor. So we know that, I know how you are. So you're going to deep dive into it. And if people are making accusations of torture, you all are going to investigate it and investigate it well. We appreciate you so much. And thank you for your support to Beyond the Gatekeepers. We have Richmond, California is here. Tina Stewart Taylor, thank you for being here. Baltimore, Maryland is in the house. We see you, Marlene McLaurin. Thank you. Washington, D.C. is here. Brooklyn is here. So glad that you're here. Garner, North Carolina. I love it. Boston, Massachusetts, the Jersey Shore. Yes, my sister is here. Newport News, Virginia. Connecticut is here. I see you, Eastern Oregon. I'm calling you out tonight. Goodyear, Arizona. I see you. Thank you so much. This is so good. Yes. Raleigh, North Carolina. Again, Louisiana, New Iberia. Now, I don't know where that is, but I know that that's someplace. Louisville, Kentucky is here. Yes, this is so good. This is so good. This is so good. La Porte, Indiana. Pittsburgh, California. I see you. This is so good. Hello, Tara Wilkins from Oregon. Thank you for being with us. Oakland, California. Carla Woods is here. We are so glad to see your faces tonight. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. I see you all. Thank you for being on Bishop Yvette Flunder's page. Thank you for being on Beyond the Gatekeepers page. Those are the 2 Facebook pages. Thank you for being on the Beyond the Gatekeepers YouTube page, on the Beyond the Gatekeepers Twitter page. We are just so glad. And on LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn on Pastor Sue's page. And we want to shout out Pastor Sue, who holds us down technically and helps us to produce this event every single Wednesday that we are on. We are happy. Thank you. Atlanta, Georgia, again, representing. So glad to see you. We have a great guest. Thank you for somebody telling me New Iberia is down in South Louisiana, which is Cajun country. I love it. Thank you so much. Dorchester, Massachusetts is here. Boston, Massachusetts is here. We're excited. We have some great people that are here with us, a great person that is here with us on tonight. And so we're going to introduce him. Dr. Simran Jeet Singh, he's the Executive Director of Religion and Society Program at the Aspen Institute. But we are here to discuss his book tonight, The Light We Give, How SIKH Wisdom Can Transform Your Life. And he is also given permission to give a book away. So he is going to give a book away on tonight. Dr. Simran Jeet Singh, please do me a favor and greet our virtual audience on tonight.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be with you all. Thank you. Thank you, Bishop-elect Vanessa. Great to be with you. And as we would say in my mother tongue, in Punjabi, Sat Sri Akal. That's our greeting. It means truth is eternal. That's what we try to remember at all times when we meet anyone. So great to be with you all, and excited for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we cannot go on. We're so grateful for her presence. She is the presiding bishop of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries in the person of Bishop Yvette A. Flunder. And she is the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Bishop Flunder, will you greet our virtual platforms for us on tonight?
Of course, it is my great joy to, first of all, be in the company of so many of you all from so many places tonight. How wonderful that is, that we are national and international in that way. It is also a great joy to be in conversation with our brother Simran. And I'll say, really, from my heart, what I feel the most wonderful about, let's put it that way, in relationship to our talking this evening, is that the love of the divine moves from faith to faith, and from understanding to understanding, and experience to experience. And the more we experience one another across all of the walls that are created by systems and governments and religion, and so much more that I can say about that, but when we push through those walls, we can find the love of the divine. The more we do that, the more we will really be able to bring peace and solidarity to the earth. There are some very specific, powerful teachings in so many of our faith paths. Imagine if we could weave those together into a quilt. Imagine what we could do to be a blessing to the world. So we are so happy tonight to have you with us and to be able to share and to talk, find our commonalities, and maybe even find some of the places where we need to do some work to help us to get this work done in the earth. So God bless you. I'm so glad that you're with us, Simran. So glad that you're with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop. Appreciate that.
I am so grateful, as Bishop Flunder said, for your presence. I think that what she said was spot on. Your book, The Light We Give, I did not have a chance to read it. But tonight, you're going to be our teacher, Simran. We want you to be our teacher, because what I am feeling just from what is happening in the world, right? What we see playing out even in our government, what happened on January 1st, all of these January 15th, all of these events that have taken place, I just feel like it takes all of us. It's not just Christianity that's going to save the world. It's all of us. It's all of the religions coming together, just like Bishop Flunder said. And when I saw it, I felt good in my heart. I looked at the title, and it was The Light We Give. And then I think one of the weeks you were talking on your Facebook page about Anne Lamott and having an interview with Anne Lamott. I just wanted to just talk to you about, first, the reason that you wrote the book. I know that you didn't write it during the pandemic, but I know you've been writing it over a course of several years. And so I want to know why you wrote it and what it means to you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that, and for that question too. I mean, there are a few reasons that I really wanted to write this book. You know, the initial impetus was really growing up in this country and feeling completely invisibilized. Like, I mean, part of the strangeness of my experience, you know, I was born and raised in South Texas. I was one of the only people with a turban in the entire region. We lived in San Antonio. I have three brothers, and everywhere we went, people noticed us, right? They noticed us when we were walking down the street, and they noticed us when we were in the grocery store, and they definitely noticed us in the airport, right? Like everyone notices us in the airport. And so we were so visible to everyone, and yet no one had any clue who we were. And so they made assumptions, right? They thought they knew who we were and what we were about, and so often their assumptions about us were in fact the opposite of how we saw ourselves, right? And this was the strange experience. It's the strange experience of racism, right? Where you see yourself in a certain way, and of course that's what matters most. But if you don't take seriously other people's assumptions, it could be the difference between life and death. And so for me, it was very much, you know, a labor of love, an act of love to help people see who I am and who my community is. And at the same time, it was almost this like, it was almost like an act of resistance to say, let me tell you this story that you've never heard before, and no one's going to tell you unless I take the mic just for a minute and insist on having you listen to me. And so that's sort of what it was for me. this desire to help our community be seen in a context where we just felt so invisible, and our invisibility had real consequences for our safety and our perseverance in this country. And so that to me is like the primary move for why this book was something I've been wanting to write for so long.
Thank you for that. And Bishop Flunder, you can chime in on xenophobia, on othering, which is what this country does, what we've seen throughout this country, right? His experience of walking through the airport, how people are judging folks, right? How that's coming from our government, or how that was coming from our government. So, Bishop Flunder, you can say more.
I was on an airplane on my way somewhere in the not too distant past. This was pre-COVID. And when we got on the plane, or were getting on the plane, there was a brother that was there that was wearing a turban. And for all of you all that may know, or you have seen some of our folks, particularly who are Sikh or identify as Muslim, often do and can and should, where what is a part of their faith path. Well, he was wearing a turban, and they stopped him on the way onto the plane and told him that he would have to remove it. And this was because there had been some situations, some incidences that happened in other places. And they told him that he had to remove it because a contingency of European American evangelical Christians who were also on this plane and were on their way somewhere started having panic attacks. It was like 5 or 6 of them. And they were just having panic attacks. They said they just couldn't get on the plane with him because they believed that something was going on, but they would feel better if he could remove it. And without any clear understanding at all of who he was, what his faith included, what his external realities, how those realities informed his internal belief systems. And one of the ladies, just us talking here, us in our audience, one of the ladies passed out on the ground. She had a fit of apoplexy of some sort, and she passed out. Here's the thing. He volunteered not to take the plane. We had to wait for them to go under the plane and find his luggage and find Miss Fallout's luggage, because we had to find hers because she was unable to fly too, because they had to call the paramedics for her. They stretched her out on a portable table and gave her oxygen to bring her back. That is just how sad it is, from one understanding and misunderstanding to another as it relates to faith. And if nothing else, we owe it to ourselves to spend some time understanding each other's faith paths. There is an enormous amount of intention in this country that we be turned essentially into a Christocentric power and domination, essentially, particularly white male-led system of government. That's the intention, which means that everybody else is suspect. And in particular, certain people like African-American people and people who identify as Muslim or identify as Sikh, and for heaven's sake, on a plane with somebody with a turban. It was the most amazing experience and made us all late. I want you to know that, Brother Simran, made us all late trying to get where we needed to go. So I offer that to you because it is a paranoia. And only educating people can help us to understand where are our commonalities. I want to hear more about where are the commonalities of faith that are a part of your faith experience.
Now, and I want, and I'm going to phrase it in another question, but it's going to be asking exactly what Bishop Flunder has just asked you. You all have within the Sikh tradition a teaching that's no fear, no hate, right? No fear, no hate, and to fight hate with love. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's such a good segue. I mean, the story itself is powerful in a way, because it's, sometimes in life we bear witness to injustice, and it opens our eyes to experiences that we don't necessarily have personally. And at the same time, you share the story, and it's powerful to me because this is my experience over and over again, right? Like the current government policy for going through airport security is, if you're wearing a turban or a hijab or anything of the sort, it's racial profiling. They pull you aside, you get a second screening. That's the official policy. And we know how dangerous policies like that are in terms of shaping people's perceptions of who gets to be treated like a first-class citizen and who gets to be treated like a second-class citizen. What is the message here in terms of what it's okay to do and who it's okay to discriminate against? And so it's a really powerful example for me. And Vanessa, the experience that I've had in airports in particular, that teaching from Sikh philosophy has been central to how I've learned to deal with these moments. Because as kids, we learn very, very early in the Sikh scripture. In fact, the fourth term and the fifth term that we learn, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. This is what I'm teaching my daughters right now, actually. The fourth and fifth terms in our scriptures are no fear and no hate. Nirpo, nirvad. And it's like any idea or quality, they're so easy to say out loud, and they're so easy to write onto a piece of paper and put up on your wall as a poster, as a reminder. I mean, we can tell ourselves anything and have any kinds of ideals we want, but the challenge is, in moments like these, what does it actually look like to respond without fear or without hatred? And I'll give you a real example that happened a few years ago for me. As my now 6-year-old was going through the airport security with me one time, she had just turned 3. And we had traveled before, but this was the first time that she saw me go through and get pulled aside. I was holding her hand. My wife was holding her baby, our baby, in her arms. And I walked through the screening holding my older daughter's hand, and then they pulled me aside. And so I told my daughter to go back to her mom. And she said, well, where are you going? Did you do something wrong? And, I've been going through these situations all my life, at least, especially since 9/11. And I've come to normalize them to some degree. But in this situation, I found myself getting so angry and so upset. I mean, I'm a pretty understated person. I don't really get that upset. But I couldn't calm down on the airplane, on the flight. I couldn't sleep that night. And all I could think about was, my own government is poisoning my daughter's views about who we are. Like, she's going to be ashamed to have me as a father because of what they're telling her, the signals they're giving her, the way they treat me and the way they treat us. And I mean, I know that's going to be true because that's how I felt about my own parents when I was growing up in Texas, right? Like, even though they didn't look that different from me, because they had accents, because they were immigrants, I was embarrassed to have them around my friends or in public. And so there was something really painful about this experience, knowing what my girls were going to learn and that there was nothing I could do about it. And so the question became, well, what do I do? How do I respond in a situation where I'm trying to live without fear and without hatred? And there's a context that's like pulling both of those things out of me constantly. And I'll share, there's a specific line from Sikh scripture that I really love and try to live by. It's Bakahu ko detne, nehepe manatan, kahona nixunre mana gyanita ibakan. So it takes this concept of no fear and no hatred to another level. Guru Tegh Bahadur, the ninth teacher, says, a truly wise person is one who doesn't fear others and also doesn't inspire fear in others, doesn't cause other people to feel fear. And so this is the trick, right? Like, how do I walk down an aisle on an airplane knowing that other people are judging me and scared of me? How do I deal with that in a way where I am both proud and confident about who I am, right? I have that knowledge in my heart that I am equally divine, but also I'm being thoughtful about their own perceptions and their fears, even if they are, and even when they are unreasonable or unfounded. And so this is a teaching. I mean, I guess part of the answer here is there is no clear formula, right? In situations of racism, there's no way to say this is how you react in every moment. Every moment is different. The stakes are a little different in each case. The people are different. The context is different. But at least for me, that's what I try and think about. How do I walk onto this airplane, or how do I pass through security and hold my head up high, even when I know that people are looking at me funny, ensuring that I am living by my values of no fear and no hate.
Go ahead, Bishop.
Oh, that brings up so much.
It did.
Yes, it does. You know, there's so many moments like that. When you show up as a woman clergy,
Yes.
and the only one.
There's a clear line. It's a line about women clergy. It's a line about being LGBTQI. It's a line about being Black in America. All of it. It's just so clear. Go ahead, Bishop.
Even educated. You show up educated, and you don't intend to throw it at anyone, but you say a sentence or two, and immediately there's a wall. And here's our truth. Here is our truth. The three of us here in this conversation, and those that are listening to us. It happens more among people who are people of faith than it does among people who are not. And that brings up, the concept, or the scripture, the New Testament scripture, God has not given us a spirit of fear. That didn't come from God and good and the Holy One. God did not give us a spirit of fear, but God has given to us power, love, and a sound mind, which is another way of saying good sense. God has given us power and love and the ability to articulate and to make a judgment that also is judgment based on peace and positive results. God did not give us a spirit of fear. And the question is, so where did we get it from? If it did not come from God, it did not come from the divine, what do you think? And to all of the folks that are listening to us tonight, please write something and send something in as you're responding to this. What do you think is so foundational to all of the fear responses that we have lifted up just in this conversation, just so far? Where does this come from?
And before he answers, listen, everybody, we are talking about the light we give. People are asking about the name of the book. It's called The Light We Give, How SIKH Wisdom Can Transform Your Life. The author is Simran Jeet Singh, and he's going to give away a book at the end of the evening. If you type hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, we will be giving a book away at the end of the evening. Thank you so much. Simran?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'd love to hear your wisdom on this, and how you would answer this question too. I mean, I'm genuinely interested. I mean, I think so what you just said, Bishop, about fear not being from God, or we could perhaps say fear is not godly, or in the Bible we hear also that there's no in love there's no fear, right? In perfect love there's no fear, there's no space for fear. This is what the SIKH tradition, and actually many religious traditions and spiritual traditions, teach this too. And in our tradition, and this is true in many other traditions too, then the question becomes, well, where is fear coming from? Why are we so worried about one another? Why do we always feel threatened? And I think, to me, what I've learned from Sikh philosophy is it all goes back to human ego, our pride, our sense of self, which I'll share a couple of thoughts that are coming from Sikh scripture immediately. One is from Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, who says, "Home dirag rog hai." He says, ego is the disease of the world. This is the root cause of our suffering. And there's this other line. I just put my girls to bed, and we recite this prayer each evening as part of Sikh tradition. And in that prayer, Guru Ram Das, the fourth teacher, he describes ego as a thorn in your foot. And he says, ego is like a thorn in your foot. The more you walk, the more you walk, the more it rubs up against you, the more painful it becomes. And we have more and more suffering. And the idea is we will continue to live this way with our pride and with our ego and all of the pain that comes with it until we stop walking for a moment and take the time to take that thorn out, right? It takes work. It's not going to happen by itself. But I think, to me, this is exactly what we're seeing so powerfully in our country right now. Our hyper individualism, our focus on our lives as the most important things in the world, our inability to connect with one another or to feel empathy for one another. I mean, it's killing us. It's literally killing us, to the point where if you don't know someone in this country, it's become normal to say you fear what you don't know. I'm scared of immigrants because I don't know them. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm scared of Black people because I don't know them. I don't know what they're going to do to me. I'm scared of people with turbans because I don't know them. I don't know what. And I think in our philosophy and our tradition, and I think this is true from my studies of Christianity as well, spirituality teaches us to start from a different place, to say, actually, I don't know them, but I can see the light in them, right? I can see the divinity in them. And so instead of being afraid of what I don't know, I can love what I don't know. I don't have to know someone to love them. And so that is, I mean, it's such a simple teaching. It's such a subtle shift. It's not far from where we are, at least the starting point, but it takes us to a totally different place from where we are right now. And I think that, to me, is the crux of our challenge in this country right now. But I'd love to hear if that resonates for you, and if you're seeing more than that too.
Well, in fact, it does resonate. It's like you said earlier, it's not always the easiest thing to do when you come up against what you experienced with your baby, with your daughter, particularly when it touches not just you, but someone who is close to you. When you see your children affected by it, when you see your parents in your community affected by it, I find myself more given to feelings when I see people other than myself. It's like myself knows better how to manage it when it's just me. But when I see it essentially happening to my loved ones and those that I'm in community with, I have a different kind of response because my innate protector comes to the front, and she's something to deal with. I have to be perfectly honest with you, but that is a part of when I really have a response, but assuming good first as versus assuming something that is not good is almost an evidence that we are healing in some ways. I can't practice pretending like I'm assuming good. I have to really be focused and determined and work at it internally to be able to see good first before I see something else in some groups of people with whom I have a history of doing wrong and evil to me and to those that I'm connected with and those that I serve. So I think that it is like to your point, to answer it personally, I find myself actively now trying to assume that I don't know the whole story, and not to profile people because I don't want to be profiled. And it's shifting and changing me in some areas. I'm finding that I am less given to believing that there is a wrong intent, and believing that there may be something that I'm missing. Now, brother, I have to tell you, every so often somebody will come along and say something and I'll backslide. You hear me? And I have to work on myself again. But I understand what it is that you're saying, and practicing that is in every faith. Just about, there is something about that part of it that includes the importance of seeing the beauty before we see the hatred, or assuming kindness, assuming that someone means right, and then let them get demerits based on what they do, after. But that is a part that I think we all have to work on. And I will say to you, in all honesty, I find myself a work in progress, asking God, asking the divine, give me your eyes. Let me see what you see. Because I have a storage in my mind and heart that remembers some things. And sometimes that is difficult for me. So that's my best answer to your question. I'd love to know what folks are saying out there too.
They are saying good things, and I need to read them. So we do have a question from Bishop-elect Sonia. I'm gonna ask the question, but I'm gonna read these comments. The question is, does not the turban and lengthy beard speak directly to your commitment of justice and peace? You don't have to answer that now, but I do want you to answer it. But to connect further to the conversation, Reverend Naomi Washington Leapart says the whole definition of knowing is tainted by the ideals of white supremacy. What we are taught is knowledge leads to fear and contempt. That's why we think getting to know someone has to do with knowing what they do and where they come from. And so she pushes the agenda further and says, can we align epistemology to the gospel, to love? Can we Can we realign epistemology to the gospel and to love? So I think that's all connected. She said, recently I was introduced to an expression, be wholehearted and half sure. That's the humble posture I want to live into, wholly sincere and wholly unsure. So like I could go on and on with comments there more, but I'm going to turn it to Simran.
Yeah, I first just respond to that and say I love that. Be wholehearted and half sure. I think that's exactly where we need to be. I mean, part of the challenge in this country right now is we talk about knowledge as liberation, right? We tell ourselves this story that once we actually know, then all of our problems will be solved and we will be the people that we hope to be. And I think the challenge is we are the most educated society in human history. We have access to more information than any other community ever. And look where we are. Look what we're up to. I mean, it's clearly not taking us where we need to go. And so to me, what's missing culturally, the prioritization in education. I mean, I grew up in public schools in Texas. We learned information. Some of it was accurate, some of it was not so accurate. But we learned information, and we never learned anything about our hearts, right? We didn't learn about values. We didn't learn how to treat one another. I mean, it's just not culturally a priority. So just to that point, I love that. And I think that's exactly where we need to go. And what I'll say sort of to tie into that is that education for me happened at home. And it happened through my faith. And part of that experience had to do with our distinctive appearance, because everywhere we went, people would ask us, why do you look that way? Why are you wearing that thing on your head? Right? What language is your family speaking? So we had to learn. We had to learn how to answer that question. And I learned early from my parents that the answer to this question has everything to do with values, right? So we started talking about at home, what does it mean to be a Sikh? What are your values? Oneness, love, service. Those are the three that we focused in on as a family. And of course, every tradition has more than that and more to offer. But those were the three that we considered primary. Oneness, the interconnectedness of all beings and the entire creation. Love, the way that we comport ourselves and relate to one another. And then service and justice as a manifestation of what that love looks like. And so I guess part of the importance of learning that early really goes back to this question that I raised earlier about racism, right? What do you do when you see yourself one way and other people see you differently? And then I happen to live in a country where the people's perceptions of me and my values are exactly opposite of how I see myself, right? Like I'll say oneness, love, and service, and they'll say terrorism, hatred, and misogyny, right? Like that's what people see when they see me. And so part of the value here of this practice, of this discernment, of this clarity around knowing what you stand for, and this for me happened to be because of my unique appearance. Learning what I stood for early meant that I was no longer stuck with other people's perceptions of me, right? I didn't have to internalize what people said about me because I knew already every morning as I tied my turban, I was thinking about, and I still think about, oneness, love, and service. How am I going to live these values today? What am I going to practice? What am I going to do? And that's become a ritual for me and something that's really formed the person that I've become. So absolutely, the turban has a lot of connotations for us, but most importantly for me, it's about those values that I try to live by every day.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Yes and amen, by the way. In your history, in the history of your faith, were there seasons when your spiritual ancestors found themselves having to fight to defend their belief system?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this is sort of the funny thing about, you know, growing up in Texas and even now living in New York City. People often tell me to go back to where I came from, and it's funny for a lot of reasons. One of them is because they don't know that I'm actually from Texas, and I don't think that's what they mean to say. But another reason is because historically and even presently, there is no place where Sikhs are the majority or in power, and persecution is a really central part of our history. And there are a lot of ways in which I could describe it, but I want to share with you a feeling that I have that I don't share often, but it may resonate with the two of you to some degree, and that is part of that history of persecution. I'm really proud of, because what we have decided as a community by choosing to look different, right? Like our religious appearance is different than racial difference because we choose to live this way, right? Like I could take off my turban and shave my beard if I wanted to, but every day I make the choice, right? It's not like skin or skin color. And so we make this choice and we say we are going to choose to live differently. And part of the rationale for that choice is to say we want to be on the front lines of fighting against bigotry. We will take on the challenge. We will stand in front of others so that we are constantly putting ourselves on the line for justice. And this is a really important teaching in our tradition, that to be a truly spiritual person, you have to show up for the people around you, whether they're your community or other communities. Your job in this world, your responsibility, if you really see people as family, if you really feel love and connection for the people around you, then it's action, right? You show up for them. And so, yes, we have been, because of our desire to stand up against injustice, we've put ourselves at risk. Because of our choices to look different, we put ourselves at risk. But I also want to say that I actually love that as part of our experience, and I embrace it. And it doesn't mean that I'm like walking around the streets of New York looking for people to attack me. But it does mean that, there's something sweet about knowing that when white supremacy is raging around this country, we're part of that fight, because I want to be part of that fight, and I want all of us to be part of that fight.
Thank you for that. And so before, I want to make sure that I said everything everybody is saying here in the chat. It's a lot of comments in the chat, and so we're so grateful for that. You have lessons from the Sikh faith that I've looked up, right? So you talk about Siva, Chardi Kala, I might be not saying it right, but you'll tell me, and Ik Anka. Talk about those three. Let's start with Siva.
Yeah. Well, seva is our term for service. And I actually have been thinking about this a lot, and I read about it a lot in the book, actually, because I think it has something really important to offer our country today. And that is, today, as we look at activism, so much of it is driven by frustration and outrage, and understandably so, right? Like there's a lot to be frustrated and outraged by. But part of what we see is immense burnout, right? People get upset, they get involved, they work hard for a little bit, and then they leave, right? They're not able to continue or sustain their support for others. And what Seva offers us is a different way of approaching activism that is rooted in love for the self and for one another. And the idea is that essentially you show up for people because you love them. You see yourselves as interconnected, and you want to reduce their suffering because your suffering is my suffering, and vice versa. Your liberation is my liberation, and vice versa. And again, it's a really simple shift. But I think, if you sort of step back for a moment and think about how you show up for people that you love, your family members, I'm thinking about my kids. Part of what happens in the process is you decenter your ego. So you're reducing suffering, you're helping out people who need what they need. That's beautiful. But also, you are improving yourself internally, right? You're reducing your ego, you're becoming less self-centered. And I've actually felt this a lot over the pandemic, where I was becoming increasingly self-centered, right? A lot of us, the world was becoming about our survival, and for good reason. But at some point, I was fine physically, but I was still only focused on myself. I wasn't worried about all the other people in this country and around the world who were at much more risk than me. And so I started serving them, and I regained perspective. I got more grounded again. I started to understand that the world wasn't about me, and it just made me happier, right? A really simple thing. So that's the teaching of Seva, that it's about activism, but it's also about love and humility baked into it, which creates a different kind of outcome. The other teaching that ties into this that you mentioned is Ikonkar. That's the first term in Sikh scripture. It's the first word that my parents learned, the first concept that I learned growing up in Texas, the first concept I've taught my girls here in New York City. And the idea is, it's again, really simple, and I think everyone could get behind this. It's that we all share the same divine light. There is a single creator who creates all of us. And then the teaching becomes, if we all come from that same light, then how do you discriminate against good or bad? Who are you to say that I am more divine than you are? I'm better than you are. I have more light in me than you. So the very possibility of supremacy, at least in our worldview, it's impossible. It can't be, because whether you are talking about gender or sexual orientation or race or caste or whatever, like, Doesn't matter. We're all equally divine. And that creates a different kind of orientation towards people and how you see them, right? Like the person sitting next to me on the subway might be a billionaire and they might not have a home. Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, right? They are literally equally divine. And we don't live that way, especially in this country, especially today. So again, I think there's something really simple but also countercultural here that I really love about our philosophy.
May I ask another question?
Of course, please.
Thank you so much, because this is wonderful. This conversation is very powerful. I know something about your history, and particularly, certainly not as much as you do, but particularly because of what happened when the British, in so many ways, took from your
colonized, stole everything,
your wealth, your land. In so many ways, it happened all over the world where it could happen, and where it wasn't about taking somebody else's land, it was taking people and using people in chattel slavery and such the like. And so the pushback from your folks in relationship to what the British did, how does it sit with you, the elders among you, and perhaps even your ancestral realities? How do you see the Sikh family, both in terms of family by blood and family by faith, connecting with the British, given the realities? Because it's very much like what we are experiencing now when we start talking about reparations, and we start talking about racism, and we start talking about the history of chattel slavery, and all of us trying to find a reasonably decent kumbaya so that we can move forward in some way, because there are some right-thinking people who are the descendants of people who have created incredible pain in our families. And I'm curious to know, how does your faith inform what your people historically lost at the hand of Britain?
Yeah, it's as you would know, and as I imagine many people who are listening would know, this is it's incredibly complicated, and part of what makes it complicated is that each of us is interpreting for ourselves, right? So I can't really speak for the community, but I can share, my readings as someone who practices the Sikh faith and is a scholar of the tradition and a historian. Part of what we've discussed already is that Sikhs, as part of our philosophy, have a really strong tradition of fighting for justice. It's important to us, and we see it as a spiritual commitment that we engage in the world politically and socially, right? It's not just about sitting around and meditating. And one of the teachings in our tradition that's also really important to us, historically and presently, is that when all other means fail, it is appropriate to fight back. And so we are not a nonviolent tradition, at least historically. I would say presently too, and in the British period as well, when the colonizers came, Sikhs were some of the most staunch and most engaged freedom fighters during the freedom movement, and that's something I'm really proud of. And part of what's become challenging in today's context is that there has been, and this is racialized too, right? Like in the American context, we might talk about civility, which is a term that's been used historically to at least convince, but usually force Black people to stand down, right? To give up their rights, to not engage in freedom movements. And it's all code, right? Like it's not said out loud in the same ways anymore. But part of the challenge has become culturally the way we talk about justice is very much limited to nonviolence. And I appreciate nonviolence as a strategy. I appreciate nonviolence in the ways that it has been used effectively by some of the greatest leaders of our time, Mandela, King, so on. I mean, it's incredible what it can do. But I also think that if we're really being honest with ourselves, there are situations where even those of us who claim nonviolence, most of us who claim nonviolence, would also say that there is a line, right? There is a place where it's appropriate to push back. And I might say, well, what if someone comes into your house while you're sleeping and attacks your family? Are you going to lay there? Are you going to fight back? I think probably most people, when push comes to shove, would fight for their family. If we talk historically, I might say, well, was the US wrong to go into Nazi Germany and to fight back and to fight for justice or fight for freedom? And I think most people would say, yeah, like that was okay, that's justified. And so part of what our tradition teaches us that's becoming increasingly difficult to talk about, and I say this specifically because it's part of the history of Black Americans in this country too, and what freedom has meant and what it's cost, has been force, and that's a real thing. It's very complicated to talk about right now, but injustice is all around us. I mean, in every context, in every location, in every form, among every community, and so it's becoming. Again, I'm not saying violence for the sake of violence. I'm not saying there's no moral code or ethical, but I do think, at least when we talk about Sikh history, and part of who we are as a community and what we believe in, that's that warrior spirit, which is very much part of our ethos, is something that I feel strongly about, and I'm really grateful to have that in our tradition.
I like it. Fight back. It's so important that we find ways to fight back and that we not suppress, because a lot of times we've been taught, even in some of these movements, to suppress. You know, we have a whole generation of young people who that's all they do is fight back. Like the reason why, part of the reason, not the only reason, but a part of the reason why we've moved the dial a little further is because they were fighting back. They were outside in the streets, while they were being, maced and all of these terrible things were happening to them, but they did not move. They were fighting back for their freedom, for our liberation, right? When some of us couldn't be out there on the streets. So I do understand that. Charlie Collar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it before, and I'm glad you brought it back up. Your Punjabi is really good, so congrats on that, first of all. Chardi Kala, it's a phrase that we say every day as part of our collective prayer. It means eternal optimism, and I have to tell you, like, it's one of those things that's cool in theory, and then when you see people live by it, it's incredible. I mean, it is transformative, and I can give you a few. I mean, here's an example. I was a senior in high school when the terrorist attacks of 9/11 happened, and I remember watching in my history teacher's class the Twin Towers fall. I remember them showing the image of Osama bin Laden as the primary suspect. And I remember people looking at me because of my turban and my beard and my brown skin. And I remember thinking that life was going to change forever. And my mom picked us up that day and took us home. My brothers and me, we locked the door. We didn't say anything. We locked the doors. The death threats started coming that day. People driving by, people calling our home. I mean, it was intense. And it happened for several days. And during the days, we're sitting there watching the TV, trying to understand what had happened to our country. We felt attacked as Americans. And in the evenings, we would sit around the phone and listen to Sikh leaders from around the country talk about the hate crimes that had occurred in their communities, how people were doing, how they were responding. I mean, it felt like we were being attacked on all sides. And after a few days, my dad says something to us like we're so lucky. And I was like, what are you talking about? What's lucky here? Like, do you understand what's happening in this world right now? And he says, yeah, but have you noticed your neighbors have been coming by and delivering meals? Your soccer teammates and coaches and teachers and classmates have all been calling to check in on you. Aren't we so lucky to have so much love in this world? And he didn't say it in this way at the time, but the lesson was clear to me that of course he saw the darkness all around us, right? Like, how couldn't he? But he chose instead to notice the light that was all around us. I mean, the goodness. And part of the lesson for me in that moment was it's a choice, right? The light is always around you. The goodness is always around you. We're wired to notice the negative. I mean, we focus in on that fear when it comes. But if we just step back and make that choice to say, what's going on around me? Where's the good? What are people actually up to? I mean, every time I've done that, and I do it a lot now actually as a practice, every time I've done that, 99% of what you see around you is beautiful. If you can just open your eyes and make that choice to look for it. So in that moment, when things felt so intense and hard for our family, my dad was able to help us step back for just a second and see that light. And that's become a practice for me and a real example for what Jardikala, eternal optimism, looks like. Where, I mean, even right now, there's so much going on in the world that's terrible. It feels like the world is on fire. And I need this practice to step back, walk around the streets of New York, see what people are up to and be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of ugliness, but people are ultimately good. I mean, I really believe that. And I think if you all will take a moment to look around, you'll see that too. It's a really powerful way of looking.
Dr. Patrick Dugan says, goodness is always around you. The goodness is always around you. I think that's a great way to look at it. I'm going to ask for you to give us something from the light we give, something that you wrote that you want us to know that just sticks out to you above all of the Sikh wisdom that we've discussed tonight and that you have known and grown up with as a part of your culture. I want you to give us something that you want to leave us here with tonight. You've left us with so much. Please know that. And then I want to also ask Bishop Flunder to give a final remark as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing that strikes me is something that I share at the very beginning of the book, and it's this experience that I had when I was a kid. I was, I think, 11 the first time someone called me a terrorist, and it was a soccer referee, and he insisted on patting down my turban. He said something offensive about how we hide bombs and knives in our turbans, and I mean, I just wanted to play. I was a kid, so I let him pat down my turban, and I was so upset with myself afterwards, wishing that I had stood up to him, even though he was an adult and I was a kid, right? Like, I didn't like how I dealt with that situation. And about a year later, a good friend of mine on my basketball team made some racist joke about me and ripped my turban off my head. And I remembered this feeling that I had with the soccer referee and wishing I'd stood up for myself. And then I just started fighting this kid, my friend. I mean, I just started pummeling him in the head. I mean, I still have scars on my knuckles from where we were punching each other. And our teammates broke us up. And I mean, I just remember walking away from that, and I still felt upset. And I was like, there's got to be a different way, right? Like, what do you do in these situations? Like, giving in doesn't feel good. Fighting back with anger doesn't feel good either. There's got to be a different approach. How do we engage other people without getting sucked into the negativity? And I think that's what spiritual philosophy has to offer us, right? And in Buddhism, it's called the third path, right? What is that third path? What is the other option that we have available to us aside from fight or flight? That would give us joy, that would make us feel proud rather than angry and ashamed. And I think we have that available to us. We just have to learn how to develop that both in terms of what that approach looks like for us through our traditions and our values, and then also how to practice that on a day-to-day basis, so that when push comes to shove and those difficult moments come, we're ready to lean into our values and walk away feeling proud of how we responded rather than ashamed. So that's something that's just learned it early through my experience, and it's a story that I share near the beginning of the book, something that's really changed me.
Is it on me? Yes. So I stand at this junction often, where I'm having to internally determine whether this is a moment of action or if this is a moment of peace. And I have found myself, and this would be my reality, very much trying to determine which, as a follower of Jesus, and a disciple of Jesus, which one of those scenarios is the best suited for what it is that I am or we are managing. Is it Jesus in the temple turning over tables? Or is it Jesus in the temple reading from the scroll of Isaiah? Jesus was in the temple both times. And there was a time he was completely frustrated from what I could read. Obviously frustrated because he just tore up the whole process in his frustration, right? With the way in which the temple was being used for ill-gotten gain. And then in another situation, he stands in his home temple and reads from the scroll of Isaiah and says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." And I have sort of arrived at the conclusion, and I appreciate your wisdom so much tonight, brother, that I think we have to hear from Spirit in those moments, because neither one of those realities should be vilified or demonized. I think that in my thinking, I think that certain circumstances call for some things and other circumstances call for other. And I believe that our connection, both with the divine and our connection with the people that we are called to serve, and the wisdom of the writers that we read and listen to and are informed by, I believe that it's about hearing from the divine that makes us know which path to take. That's why your meditative life impresses me and touches me so deeply, because I'm finding more and more in my meditative life, I know better. We can know better which one of those paths. I don't see them as one right and one wrong. I like both of those Jesuses. I just want to put I want to put it out there that I'm down with both of them, because sometimes it's Jesus in the tables and sometimes it's Jesus in the scroll. Why? Because I think that there are times that both of them are necessary. But we have to be able to be connected enough to our understandings of the divine and connected enough to community to know when our response would be the most effective. I would send that out to those that are listening to us tonight, because I think that that is a message for us. Hearing with our hearts, not just with our ears and not just what we get on social media and such, but hearing with our hearts, and then knowing when we hear from the divine, what is the road that I should take or we should take. Wisdom in our struggle for justice. Wisdom is a very spiritual thing and a needed thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. So I hear you. I hear your heart. And I'm connecting with you as your sister and friend tonight. God bless.
Thank you so much, Bishop and Simran. I participated in an event tonight, and that event was for Unity Churches, Unity based out of Kansas. And it was Unity World Prayer Day. just before I got on this call, got on this virtual with you all, and their topic was keeping the high watch. Keeping the high watch. And I feel like this conversation that we've had tonight was really all the light we give. Everything that's been said is about keeping the high watch. It's about, one of the things that I wrote down is that, simply means standing firm in your truth, no matter what is going on around you, and you can hold the high watch and not say a word. Sometimes you don't even have to speak. It's about the energetic space that you choose that actually speaks louder than your words. That's it. And so it's about the light we give. I'm so grateful tonight for you, Simran. I'm so grateful for you tonight, Bishop Flunder, because what you did in the light we give, you showed us how to keep the high watch. And so I'm so grateful for you tonight. We appreciate you very much. Those of you who have just come in and just wanting to know what's going on, we were discussing the book, The Light You Give. The author is Jeet Singh. We are doing a free book giveaway tonight. Please type hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. That's hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so you can win your book. Do not leave us so that you can know if you have won on tonight. And so we're going to go to our advertisement. Then we're going to go to our free book giveaway. Bishop Flunder.
God bless you this evening, beloved. I know that these conversations are blessing you, and they are certainly blessing me. And I can see and sense the Spirit of God and good moving us through one of the greatest challenged times in our history. And I want to encourage you to continue, please, to support the Gatekeepers. I'm encouraging you to support financially by sending a donation via Cash App to $TFAM annual, or by PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. And if you were going to do $20, seek to give 50. If you were going to give 50, challenge yourself to give 100. Why? Because in order for us to really create the kind of format that we really hope to do, this work is not free. And we're encouraging you. We're expanding and expanding and expanding. And who knows? But what God will do, what Spirit will do, what the divine will do to cause us to have hands across the water from faith to faith, place to place. It's going to take our commitment to do this. This is good work, beloved. This is good work, and it is blessing our lives. Support financially, with prayer, with intention, and let's just see where God takes us. God bless you, and I am so thrilled to be with you tonight.
And so we have another announcement we want to make. Mother Shirley Miller's 80th birthday is coming up. As a matter of fact, it's next Wednesday. We will not be on Beyond the Gatekeepers because we'll be celebrating her 80th birthday. And for those of you who have asked over and over again about how to give a gift, you can text 80 to 510-257-9001. Follow the prompts to Easy Tithe. You can use Cash App, $CORUCC, or you can use PayPal. That's paypal.me/CORUCC. If you want to send a check, send it to 8400 Enterprise Way, Oakland, California, 94621. What I will do is I will post this particular announcement on the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. So you can go to the Beyond the Gatekeepers page if you didn't get a chance to write it all down, and it'll be there so that you can see we will be celebrating Mother Miller's 80th birthday, and we are so happy to make this announcement on tonight. Mother Shirley Miller's birthday, 80 years old. Thank you, Bullet in Flight Radio, your story, your station, and you can listen to Beyond the Gatekeepers on the app. Just download the Bullet in Flight Radio app, and you can also listen to us there. Lifestyle Global Properties. Antonio Mattier is our lifestyle realtor, and he is saying, donate to your church, give to your church while accomplishing your goal of home ownership. Lifestyle Global Properties will donate 10% of the commission earned from your real estate transaction to your choice of COR, which is City of Refuge, or TFAM, which is the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, in your name when you utilize their brokerage to purchase or sell a property, residential or commercial in California or Georgia. If you want more information about that, please, please, please email Antonio at antonio@antoniomatier.com, or you can visit his website by going to www.antoniomatier.com. Thank you for your support, Antonio. Support Black businesses. Rim Fellowship United Church of Christ, where the senior pastor is Bishop-elect Sonia E. Williams, is asking and inviting you to join them on Tuesday nights for Bible study, on Wednesday for morning prayer. Children's Church, for more information, they want you to visit their website, and also you could the website is rimatl.org. That's www.rimatl.org. Or you can email them at rimatlanta@gmail.com. You can find them on Facebook Live. You can find them also on Cash App, and they have their phone number, which is 404-284-3113. I know they have their own Facebook page. Just go to the Facebook page, and you can see all of that information that we just relayed to you. We are shouting out again, Rim, for Water for Jackson, Mississippi. 2 truckloads of water went to Mississippi. 2 truckloads, along with sanitizer and all of those things, wipes, for the people of Jackson, Mississippi. Great work, Rim Fellowship, Bishop-elect Sonia, along with Centers for Spiritual Living, Reverend David Alexander. And we're so grateful for all of those TFAM South who actively participated in making it happen. God bless. We have the Healing Place Apothecary, where Nubian Flunder is the founder. You can go to her website at www.thpapothecary.com. That's THP, which stands for The Healing Place Apothecary.com. You will find black soap, root oil, daily greens, raw shea souffle, daily fruit, rose water. And this is the daughter of our presiding bishop. We want you to support a Black-owned business. And then we have Sky Michelle's Teas and Things. You can support the Kid Boss. This month is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And so Sky Michelle has decided that we're going to have a brand of T-shirts for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And $5 is going to go to cancer research. $5 of whatever you all purchase will go to cancer research. So please support Sky Michelle Teas and Things. Go to her website at www.skymichelle.com, where the kid is the boss. Support Black businesses. And then we have Inspire. So we are grateful for our tech person and producer, Susan Angela Webley. She has her own company. She's the founder of Kara Solutions. And so she has a show on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Grab your favorite morning beverage and join them on Inspire. She will be highlighting BIPOC entrepreneurs, influencers, and creatives on a mission to change their communities and the world. And you can watch her live on Facebook. You can watch her live on YouTube, Twitter, and on LinkedIn. You can listen later if you can't catch it on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Please support Black businesses. And if you want to advertise with Beyond the Gatekeepers, you can just email us at beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. That's beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. All right, we got a giveaway that we're about to handle tonight. We're so excited. The light we give, the light you give. The author is Simran, Jeet, Singh. And please type the hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers if you'd like to win. And here we go. S.L. Jenkins, 1967, an avid supporter of Beyond the Gatekeepers on YouTube. S.L. Jenkins, please find us on Facebook. Please make sure that you type your full name and address so that we can be sure that we mail out this book to you. Thank you, everyone who have joined in on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn tonight. We appreciate your support. We will not be with you on next week, Wednesday, but we will return the following week. We say God bless you and have a wonderful evening.